Hi, welcome to our ProAV Academy series on tech terms, where we sit down with Alister Chapman and chat through some of the technical terms that just come up again and again in this industry. Alister is one of the best people I know at explaining complex technical concepts, so hopefully, just by casually chatting with him each one of these terms through, these videos can just help clear up some of the confusion that might be out there on each of these terms. Today, we're going over the differences between a T-stop and an f-stop, two slightly different ways of measuring the aperture of a lens. So one thing I get asked about a lot when customers are looking at cinema lenses for the first time is that they notice that the iris is marked in T-stops rather than f-stops. Should we go over what that means? Are they the same thing? Why are they marked differently?
So they're marked differently because a T-stop is the transmissions, T for transmission, the transmission loss through the lens plus the aperture.
Okay.
So the reason why on a cinema lens you have T-stops is very typically when you're shooting a scene, you may swap lenses. So you might use several different lenses for the same scene. So if we work through this, it might become clear as to why this all is important. Okay. So a cinematographer will light his scene, and then he'll use a light meter to measure the light in that scene, and that will give him an exposure setting for the camera, which will include the f-stop for the camera. So the light meter will be exposed in f-stops because the light meter assumes no light loss. It doesn't know what lens you're using, so it gives you the theoretical f-stop value that will give you the correct exposure.
Gotcha.
Now the problem is that lenses, not only do they have an aperture which gives you an f-stop, but also due to reflections between the glass elements in the lens and filters and coatings and things like that, will also have a small amount of transmission loss. So you might, of 100% of your light that goes through, 5% of that light might be lost, or maybe even 10%, through reflections and the coatings on the glass and everything else. So to have a truly accurate exposure, you have to take that into account. It's all very well just setting the aperture, but because there will also be some actual light loss in the lens itself, you would be marginally, it's very marginally, but marginally underexposed. So the T-stop takes into account both the aperture and the transmission losses through the lens, so it gives you an exposure that is truly representative of what the light meter says. Now the other thing, of course, then if you're swapping lenses, a long focal length lens may have different losses to a very wide lens because the way the light's being gathered is differently. You might have different coatings, different glass thickness and all those sorts of things. So when you're swapping lenses, what you don't want in your movie is different lenses being different brightnesses. So that lens gives you one brightness, this one gives you a different brightness. So by having T-stops on all of your lenses, provided they're all set to the same T-stop, you can swap your lenses all day long and your exposure will be identical from lens to lens to lens, or even from, might be from different manufacturers even. In theory, I could use a Cooke with a Zeiss, with a Arri lens, and they'll all have the same light loss, so they'll all give me exactly, or the same T-stop, so they'll all give me an identical exposure. Whereas if you were to use stills lenses which only have the f-stop, you're going to see some variation from lens to lens to lens. So I have the same size of aperture, but the amount of light that actually makes it all the way through the glass to the sensor will vary depending on the losses of each lens.
So why do we have both? Why isn't T-stops just a uniform sort of industry standard that every single one from cinema down to stills photography uses?
It's actually a really good question, and I don't actually have a definitive
I assume
answer.
It's just cost, right?
I would imagine that you're right.
The
I would
engineering costs involved in scientifically measuring the transmission value and working that out for each lens is, I assume, part of the reason why cinema glass costs more.
I would imagine that is the answer, is exactly that, is measuring it, calculating it and figuring it out for all of these different lenses is precisely it, yeah.
Yeah, cool, thank you. Thanks for watching, I hope that was helpful. Keep in mind, we also do a whole range of ProAV Academy workshops held right here in our UK showroom, where we cover a whole range of topics, from audio to post-production, camera techniques, business tips, lighting tips, and many more. The main aim of these workshops is to help our customers learn and develop their skills. And there's something about face-to-face training which can just never be replaced by videos like this one. So if you're in the UK, please do get a ticket from the link down below and join us for ProAV Academy.